Palacio Nacional de Belén. Our Holy Father was welcomed there, and he left a greeting in the Book of Honor. And I quote, "As a pilgrim of hope in Portugal, I pray and hope that this young-hearted country will continue to reach out towards horizons of fraternity. Lisbon, center of encounter, city of encounter, will inspire ways of facing together the great questions of Europe and the world." This is the Pope's second visit to Portugal. He went to visit the Shrine of Our Lady of Fatima on the 12th and 13th of May in 2017 for the centennial anniversaries of the apparition, but this is his first veritable apostolic journey. We'll now hear the President's discourse, Mr. Marcelo Rebelo de Sousa.
Em Lisboa, Portugal, acolhe-vos de braços abertos.
Holy Father, today in Lisbon, Portugal welcomes you with open arms for 5 unforgettable days.
Vosso testemunho de dignidade das pessoas.
It welcomes your people regarding the dignity of people among themselves and in their relationship with nature,
De paz,
of hope, of peace, of fraternity,
de procura das periferias.
of searching or going out toward the peripheries, of your fight against hunger, misery,
Opressões,
oppression,
abusos,
abuse,
xenofobias,
xenophobia, intolerance,
exclusões, deserdados destes tempos.
and those who are excluded or disinherited of our days. With you,
Jovens católicos,
it also welcomes with open arms young Catholics, believers of various faiths,
não crentes,
and non-believers
ao apelo das vossas
who have come
palavras.
responding to your call, because with you, we're taking a pause right now. Our Holy Father is receiving
Porque
headphones so he can hear the simultaneous translation.
a vossa voz tornou-se maior do que o vosso povo.
So that your voice will grow or expand among other people. Your voice, it says, not to fall asleep, not to stay put, to rise up against injustice, to defend ourselves from all that is worldly, not to be immobile, become comfortable, or be closed.
Deixai a vossa marca,
Your call to leave our mark on this world,
que vos roubem a
and
vossa
not to allow that the joy of youth be stolen,
ousai sonhar grande.
and to dare to dream big.
Santo Padre,
Holy Father,
é neste mesmo espírito que Portugal quer viver a
it
vossa
is in this same
presença
spirit that
e a
Portugal
vossa
wants to live your
mensagem.
presence and your message
Nestes 5 dias e para além deles,
in these 5 days and after,
conforme o lema da
in
jornada,
accordance with the motto of the World Youth Day,
e partir a
to arise and go in haste,
levantar-se
to get up, to rise,
para olhar
since it's never too late to go in search of another,
ainda mais do que ontem.
today and tomorrow, even more than yesterday, to leave in haste, urgently,
Essencial,
because
sempre
the essential always needs to be done. What's essential always needs to be done. Holy Father,
com a coragem do vosso testemunho ao serviço
Portugal is ready to receive your message and your testimony that you're giving to the entire world. The discourse of the President of Portugal, Mr. Marcelo Rebelo de Sousa, who became president in 2016 and was re-elected in 2021. And we now prepare ourselves for the discourse that our Holy Father has prepared and is now getting ready to present. In the background we see the coat of arms of both the Holy See and, of course, the Republic of Portugal. Again, our Holy Father meeting here with government authorities, members of civil society, and the diplomatic corps on this first day of his 42nd apostolic journey President of the Republic, Mr. President of the Assembly of the Republic, Mr. Prime Minister, members of government and the diplomatic corps, authorities, representatives of civil society and the world of culture, ladies and gentlemen.
Saluto cordialmente e ringrazio il signor Presidente per l'accoglienza e per le cortesi parole che mi ha rivolto.
I greet you cordially, and I thank you, Mr. President, for your welcome and kind words. He was very welcoming, Mr. President. I am happy to have come to Lisbon, the center of encounter, city of encounter, which embraces many peoples and cultures, and which in these days is even more global. In a certain sense, it has become the capital of the world, and even of the future, because young people are the future of the world. This very much befits its multi-ethnic and multicultural character. I think of the Moraria district, where people from more than 60 countries live together in harmony. And it displays the cosmopolitan face of Portugal, grounded in a desire to be open to the world and to explore it, setting sail or navigating towards ever new and vaster horizons. To navigate, because not far from us at Cabo da Roca are sculpted the words of the great poet of this city, here where the land finishes and the sea begins. For centuries, people considered that place to be the end of the earth, and in some sense it is. We find ourselves at the end of the earth because this country borders the ocean, which defines the continents. Lisbon reflects the ocean's embrace and bears its fragrance. I too sense what the Portuguese people love to sing. Lisbon, filled with flowers and the sea. That sea, which is much more than just a part of the landscape. It's a call that is stamped on the heart of every Portuguese person. The crashing sea, the bottomless sea, the infinite sea, as one of your local poets has called it. Gazing at the ocean, the Portuguese people reflect on the immense reaches of the soul and the meaning of our life in this world. So I too, inspired by the image of the ocean, would like to share with you some thoughts. In classical mythology, Oceanus is the child of the sky, Uranus. Its vastness leads mortal men and women to lift their gaze up on high and to rise up towards the infinite. Yet Oceanus is also the child of the all-embracing earth, Gaia, calling us to embrace with tenderness the entire inhabited world. The ocean does not merely link people and countries, but lands and continents. Lisbon is an ocean city. Thus it reminds us of the importance of the whole. To think of borders as places of contact, not as boundaries that separate. Today we realize that the great questions facing us are global. Yet we often find it hard to respond to them precisely because, faced with common problems, our world is divided, or, to say the very least, is insufficiently cohesive, incapable of confronting together what threatens us all. Planetary injustice, wars, climate and migration crises, these are moving forward much more rapidly than our ability and often our will to confront these challenges in a united way. Lisbon can suggest a different path. It was here in 2007 that the Treaty for the Reform of the European Union was signed. That treaty, named after this city, affirmed that the Union's aim is to promote peace, its values, and the well-being of its peoples. Yet, it goes beyond that, asserting that in its relation with the wider world, it shall contribute to peace, security, the sustainable development of the earth, solidarity and mutual respect among peoples, free and fair trade, the eradication of poverty, and the protection of human rights. And he ends the quote. These are not only words, but milestones along the path of the European community, and are impressed on this city's memory. This is the spirit of the whole, inspired by the European dream of a multilateralism broader than merely that of the West.
Il nome Europa deriverebbe proprio da una parola che indica la direzione d'Occidente.
According to a debatable etymology, the name Europe derives from a word meaning the direction west. What is certain is that Lisbon is the most westerly capital of continental Europe, and thus speaks to us of the need to open ever broader paths of encounter. Portugal is already doing this, above all with countries of other continents that share the same language. It is my hope that World Youth Day may be for the old continent. He's making a joke that we can call it the elderly continent. It is my hope that World Youth Day may be for the old continent an impulse towards universal openness, that it might become younger. For the world needs Europe, the true Europe. It needs Europe's role as a bridge and peacemaker in its eastern part. In this way, Europe will be able to make its own specific contribution in the international arena based on the ability it showed in the last century in the aftermath of the world wars to achieve reconciliation and to realize the vision of former enemies who joined together to work for a better future. That goal was attained by initiating processes of dialogue and inclusion, and by developing a diplomacy of peace aimed at settling conflicts and lessening tensions, attentive to the slightest signals of dissension, and reading between the most crooked lines.
Rotte coraggiose di pace. Guardando con accurato affetto all'Europa.
We are sailing amid storms on the ocean of history, and we sense the need for courageous courses of peace. With deep love for Europe and in the spirit of dialogue that distinguishes this continent, we might ask her, where are you sailing if you are not showing the world paths of peace, creative ways for bringing an end to the war in Ukraine and to the many other conflicts causing so much bloodshed? Or again, to widen the scope, we might ask, West, Europe, on what course are you sailing? Your technologies, which have brought progress and globalized the world, are not in and of themselves sufficient, much less your highly sophisticated weapons, which do not represent investments for the future, but a depletion of its authentic human capital, that of education, health, the welfare state, or the social state. It is troubling when we read that in many places funds continue to be invested in arms rather than in the future of the young. And he said he spoke with a government official recently, and he said that the largest investment goes toward weapons and not toward the future of its children. I dream of a Europe, the heart of the West, that employs its immense talents to settling conflicts and lighting lamps of hope, a Europe capable of recovering its youthful heart, looking to the greatness of the whole and beyond its own immediate needs, a Europe inclusive of people and persons without chasing after ideologies and forms of ideological colonization. And this, the people who founded the European Union are examples of this because they had big dreams.
L'oceano, immensa distesa di acqua, richiama gli origini.
The ocean, this immense expanse of water, recalls the origins of life. In today's developed world, paradoxically, the defense of human life, menaced by a creeping utilitarianism that uses life and discards it, the culture, the throwaway culture, has now become a priority. I think of so many young unborn children and other persons who are abandoned, of the great challenge of welcoming, protecting, promoting, and integrating those who come from afar, who knock on our doors, and the isolation felt by so many families that find it hard to bring children into the world and raise them. Here too we might ask, where are you sailing, Europe and the West? With the discarding of the elderly, the walls of barbed wire, the massive numbers of death at sea, and empty cradles, where are you sailing? Where are you sailing if, before life's ills, you offer hasty but mistaken remedies, like easy access to death? A convenient answer that seems sweet, but is in fact more bitter than the waters of the sea.
Penso a tante leggi sofisticate sull'eutanasia.
I'm thinking of many sophisticated laws regarding euthanasia, he added.
Lisbona, abbracciata dall'oceano, ci dà però motivo di sperare. La città della speranza.
Lisbon, surrounded by the ocean, nonetheless gives us reason to hope. A sea of young people is pouring into this hospitable city, and here I would like to express my gratitude for the hard work and generous efforts shown by Portugal in hosting an event so challenging to organize and yet so rich in hope. As a local saying goes, in the company of the young, we never grow old. Young people from around the world who long for unity, peace, and fraternity. Young people who are dreaming urge us to make their good dreams come true. They are taking to the streets not to cry out in anger, but to share the hope of the gospel, the hope of life. And if there are many areas where we are witnessing a climate of protest and unrest, a fertile terrain for forms of populism and conspiracy theories, World Youth Day represents a chance to build together. It revives our desire to accomplish something new and different, to put out into the deep, and to set sail together towards the future. We are reminded of these bold words of Pessoa: to set sail is necessary, to live is not. What is important is to create. So let us resolve with creativity to build together. I would like to suggest 3 construction sites of hope in which all of us can work together: the environment, the future, and fraternity. And with this, I'll end.
Ambiente, futuro e fraternità. L'ambiente. Il Portogallo condivide con l'Europa tanti.
The environment. Portugal, together with Europe, has made outstanding contributions to the protection of creation, but on the global level, the problem remains extremely serious. The oceans are warming, and their depths are bringing to the light. The oceans are warming, and their depths are bringing to light the shamelessness with which we have polluted our common home. We are transforming great reserves of life into dumping grounds of plastic. The ocean reminds us that human life is meant to be an integrated part of an environment greater than ourselves, one that must be protected and cared for, safeguarded, with concern for the sake of future generations. How can we claim to believe in young people if we do not give them healthy spaces in which to build the future? The future is the second construction site. People are the future. Yet they encounter much that is disheartening, like the lack of jobs, the dizzying pace of contemporary life, hikes in the cost of living, the difficulty of finding housing, and even more disturbing, the fear of forming families and bringing children into the world. In Europe, and more generally in the West, we are witnessing a troubled decline in the democratic curve. Progress seems to be measured by developments in technology and personal comfort, whereas the future calls for reversing the fall in the birth rate and the weakening of the will to live. A healthy politics can accomplish a lot in this regard. It can be a generator of hope. It is not about holding on to power, but about giving people the ability to hope. Today, more than ever, government is about correcting the imbalances of a market economy that produces wealth, but fails to distribute it, depriving people of resources and security. Political life is challenged once more to see itself as a generator of life and concern for others. It is called to show foresight by investing in the future, in families and in children, and by promoting intergenerational covenants that do not erase the past, but forge bonds between the young and the old. We need to recuperate this, forging bonds between the young and the old. This is encouraged by that sense of saudade, which in the Portuguese language expresses a kind of nostalgia, a yearning for an absent good that is born of contact with our roots. Our young people need to find their own roots in their older people. Here, education is essential, an education that does not simply impart technical knowledge directed to economic growth, but it aims to make the young part of history, to pass on a tradition, to value our religious dimension, and to favor social friendship. And the final construction site is fraternity, which we Christians learn about from Jesus Christ. In many parts of Portugal, we encounter a lively sense of closeness and solidarity. But in the broader context of a globalization that brings us closer but fails to create fraternal closeness, all of us are challenged to cultivate a sense of community, beginning with looking for those who live nearby. For as Saramago observed, what gives true meaning to encounter is concern for others. And we have to travel far to arrive at what is near. How beautiful it is to realize that we are brothers and sisters, and to pursue the common good, leaving behind our conflicts and our differing viewpoints. Here too we can see an example in these young people who, with their pleas for peace and their thirst for life, impel us to break down the walls of separation erected in the name of different opinions and creeds. I have come to see how many young people long to draw closer to others. I think of the Missão País initiative, which leads thousands of young people in the spirit of the gospel to share experiences of missionary solidarity in the peripheries. Especially in the villages in the interior of the country, and to go out in search of elderly people who are living alone. And this is something the young people are doing. I would like to thank and encourage them and all of those in Portuguese society who work in helping others, as well as the local church, which quietly and unobtrusively does so much good. Let us feel called as brothers and sisters to give hope to the world in which we live and to this magnificent country. And he ends with God bless Portugal, and he says it in Portuguese. Those here present, now on their feet, after having heard our Holy Father's discourse, his first, here at the Cultural Center of Belém, where there are about 1,000 people present representing the government, members of civil society, and the diplomatic corps. This particular building, built between 1988 and 92, it was the headquarters of the Portuguese presidency of the European Economic Community, or now the European Union. And it's been used as a cultural center since 1993. Our Holy Father exchanging a few words here with the President of the Republic of Portugal, Mr. Marcelo Rebelo de Sousa. As we see the hall very much like a theater, it's also used for entertainment and exhibits. Our Holy Father is now in his wheelchair, acknowledging all those who've come here. And with these images,